So, Mike, disappointing end to race one. What happened?
There was no grip out there at all. The car was particularly bad, sideways under acceleration, under braking, under turning, you know, pretty much sideways all the time. I think it was a matter of when, not if, I was going to crash the car, to be honest, and we spun off a paddock and in the gravel, and that was that.
Any major damage, or are you going to be all right for race two?
We'll be out in race two. Splitter broke, but that's kind of standard issue stuff. We'll get it fixed. It'll be JD for race two. If it stays like this, we're on slicks. I suppose we can set the pressures a bit higher and hope.
At what point will you decide if you're going to go for wet tyres for race two?
Well, because I've got a very small team of one supporting me, it's something we're going to have to make a decision at 5 or 10 minutes before the race, because we won't have the chance to change them during the race. So it's going to be wet or dry.
The big money is that it's going to be wet, and so we've got the car actually set up for wet running. Even if we go to dry, the cars will still stay as if it's going to be wet.
But you'll wait till the very last minute until you get the guys to put these on?
We will call it, and even then we'll take whichever ones we don't fit, we'll take to the pit wall to change if it changes then.
Now, what happens though if the rain stops during the race and we start to get drying conditions?
Okay, well that's where temperature comes in, and as these will then overheat, they will just burn off really quickly, and then they might go into the gravel.
Well, here we are down on the grid. It's definitely a wet race. All of the drivers have got wets on their car. Second row of the grid, well, Andy Ruin in the Porsche 997 has lost some of his success ballast, but Danny Winstanley, our winner of race one, has gained some. On the front row, well, it's the BMW of the Seldons, and on pole position once again, it's the TVR of Mike Saunders. He's going to be hoping for a better race this time round. I'll hand you straight over to the commentary box.
Thanks very much, Charlie. So the rain really coming down here, but it's Benjamin Harvey in the KTM Crossbow. He was the star of race one. Let's see what he can do on a fully wet track in race two. I guess the only challenge for him is going to be that the whole field are equally equipped on the wet tyres. Out they go on the green flag lap with Michael Saunders in pole. Matt Selden second on the grid, both men local drivers. Danny Winstanley there in third, and Andy Ruin in fourth. Stephen Ritchie from fifth. He'll be hoping for better this time around. Colin Brosser, I think we can expect to see him charging up through the field from 12th, and a good Group 3 battle in prospect from Mark Radcliffe and Adam Hayes. It promises to be a great race as the safety car peels in. It's a rolling start as ever in the GT Cup Championship, and it's the yellow TVR of Michael Saunders who leads the field as they blast towards Paddock Hill Bend. The first time, everybody's streaming through. This Matt Selden who gets the jump and challenges around the outside through Paddock. Colin Broster running a little bit wide in the mid-pack. Benjamin Harvey also trying to gain ground, but it's Matt Selden who's taken the lead. It's Saunders second. Winstanley was in third. It's Andy Ruin who goes third. That's great driving from Andy Ruin, splitting the KTM Crossbow and the TVR to go third. Benjamin Harvey trying to fight it out around the outside. He goes fourth, so Winstanley shuffled down. And here's Gary Eastwood, who's going to shuffle down even further down. Super driving from Gary Eastwood. He saw the gap. Stephen Ritchie seems to the same hole on the track, and so he goes through as well. So Danny Winstanley, who won earlier on today, has just dropped down the field like a stone in these early stages. He just ran a little bit wide into Graham Hill Bend. The rest of them went through. It's Matt Selden who's got the early advantage. He's trying to pull away from Michael Saunders with Andy Ruin, the next man through. Gary Eastwood making really good progress. He'll be looking to make amends from that 10th place classification from the first race of the day, as everybody cleanly through in these very difficult conditions. Matt Selden, he hails from Sevenoaks, not too far down the road. Michael Saunders lives even more locally, so they both know their way around this Brands Hatch Grand Prix loop. And, well, the fact for Matt to consider in this race is that, as you remember in race one, his dad Peter put on those wet tyres, and those wet tyres weren't appropriate really for the track in race one, and so the tread has rather worn off those, whereas Michael Saunders has got completely fresh wets on the car. So as this race progresses, Matt Selden may just find himself running out of grip. We'll see how we go. Well, Gary Eastwood making the move and going through. It's a good move on Benjamin Harvey in the KTM Crossbow. So Gary Eastwood progressing up through the field in the FF Course Ferrari, which always goes so well. Benjamin Harvey trying to fight back, slithering wide. BMW in the mid-pack, and that's the new car for the GT Cup Championship this weekend. It's Kevin Clark and Wayne Gibson having a race apiece, and they've both been very competitive. So Gary Eastwood now trying to build that gap over Benjamin Harvey. Through Graham Hill Bend they go, and Gary Eastwood also on the tail of Andy Ruin, which has been the story thus far really throughout 2011, the pair of them think the drivers will expect to see it fighting out for the championship at the end of the year, although Michael Saunders and Danny Winstanley cannot be discounted. Through Hawthorns we go again, and still Benjamin Harvey trying to do battle with the BMW. Stephen Ritchie also well up and having a solid race this time. Danny Winstanley trying to recover the ground. Then we've got David Tomlin and Michael Simmons. So good battles really wherever you look on the circuit. Lights ablaze from the Ferrari and the KTM Crossbow. And I love watching the KTM Crossbow because you can really see Benjamin Harvey at work behind the wheel. You can see him seesawing at the arms as he scrabbles for grip around the Brands Hatch loop. So they accelerate out of Stirling's and down the hill on towards Clearway to complete another lap. And just look at that rain sheeting in. The track really is completely awash. Now as Gary Eastwood got a run here on Andy Ruin, he draws alongside as they accelerate along Bramham Straight. Andy Ruin taking the wide line, that leaves the door open for Gary Eastwood if he's feeling bold on the brakes, and I think he is. Through he goes, so Gary Eastwood up into third place. That was a really nicely judged manoeuvre. So Gary gains the place he was given. Enough racing room by Andy Ruin, but he still had to work for it, although he leaves the door a little bit open as well into Druids. Andy Ruin contemplating fighting back in the Porsche on the inside. No way through as Danny Winstanley and Stephen Ritchie. How close do you want to go as Danny goes through at Druids, and Stephen gave him a TVR's width and no more. And again, this wet race proving the GT Cup Championship multi-mark formula and the car equalisation really does work as Tom Andrew outbrakes himself. Oh no, Tom into the gravel trap. Will he keep the engine going? Yes, he does. Will he dig in? Unfortunately, he also does that too. So Tom Andrew brings out the safety car as he's beached in the gravel trap. So it's Matt Selden who continues to lead from Michael Saunders, Gary Eastwood and Andy Ruin as Tom Andrew is extricated. Great shame for him to end the race that way. Safety car is in, we're back racing, and Matt Selden plants his right foot, accelerates through on towards Paddock Hill Bend. Now will Michael Saunders be able to gain ground on him? We shall see as this race unfolds. Also Gary Eastwood in third should not be discounted. So they plunge through Paddock, and Michael Saunders already making ground on Matt Selden. He looks to the inside as they climb the hill towards Druids, and this is where Matt is really going to have to start defending very heavily because they run alongside, and Saunders gets the overlap on the exit of Druids. Selden eventually sprints just a little bit clear. Into Graham Hill Bend they come, and Saunders looking to get the power on nice and early. Fantastic in-car shot here from Matt Selden. You can see Matt at work at the wheel. You can see Michael Saunders immediately in his wheel tracks. Further down the order, that's Adam Hayes. He is comfortably leading Group 3. He's had a great weekend as Adam, and he's up past some of the Group 2 runners as Saunders again has a good exit from Clark Curve. He's challenging Matt Selden. The BMW a little bit heavier than the TVR, and again as the race progresses that enables the TVR possibly to run a little bit more strongly than the BMW, and again it's the equalisation formula very much coming into play. Gary Eastman's still there in third position. This isn't too far adrift as Selden makes a slight error at Druids. Again he runs wide. This is Saunders' best opportunity of the race, surely. They descend towards Graham Hill Bend, again side by side. Selden to the inside, Saunders looking to get the switch back. He gets power nice and early. He gets it on too early. Around he goes. And Michael Saunders, would you believe it, from a race-winning position in race 1 he spun scrabble. In race 2 he rotates to Graham Hill Bend. So it's now the turn of Gary Eastwood to pile the pressure onto Matt Selden. And Matt just can't believe it. He's seen off the TVR, he's now got the Ferrari to worry about as we go through Stirling's. We're very much in the closing stage of the race here, so Gary's going to make his manoeuvre. He's going to have to do it fairly shortly. Adam Hayes continues to lead Group 3 in the BMW as Matt Selden accelerates along Bramham Straight for the final time. The checkered flag goes out, he flashes lights. It's been a brilliant victory from Matt Selden with Gary Eastwood in second. Tom Andrew did recover in the Morgan, so he got back out there. That's good to see. Benjamin Harvey wins Group 2. It's been a very strong day for him. So here are the race results, with Matt Selden taking the win from Gary Eastwood and Danny Winstanley recovering up the order into third, with Michael Saunders after that spin home in fourth and Stephen Ritchie in fifth. In terms of the group results, well, Group 1 it was Matt Selden, Gary Eastwood and Danny Winstanley. In Group 2, Benjamin Harvey taking the win from Colin Broster and Francis Glashan well up on the podium. And in Group 3, Adam Hayes, his first victory of the year from Mark Radcliffe and Barclay Dougal. Again, very warm round of applause and some delighted drivers. It's been a great race and a superb victory for Matt Selden.
Matt, congratulations. Fantastic result in the wet here at Brands Hatch. How was that?
It was great fun to start with. But it was just non-stop pressure. I haven't driven in the wet for a few years actually in that car, so I was not very confident. I know Michael very well, he's a friend and he's very quick, and my mirrors were just yellow for most of that race, and when they weren't, and I thought I had a few laps still to go and could relax, I couldn't because Gary was coming up in the Ferrari.
I was running on tyres as old as Colin, so it was a bit difficult, but whereas in the first race I could drive more, this time I was suffering because I had so much power and I could hold them off but not down the straight or out past 30s, but I enjoyed it.
Your first GT Cup win?
Yeah, absolutely, really pleased to get the first win. I was leading this morning, had a problem with the car and dropped back to second, but really pleased, and just got to thank my team, Intersport, Kevin Clark and Chris Locke, Wayne. We're getting there, really, really happy, really happy.
So as we leave Brands Hatch in the Group 1 Championship, it's Andy Ruin who leads it from David Tomlin and Michael Simmons, very close at the top of Group 1. Into Group 2, Francis Galashan still leads, but only by 3 points from Benjamin Harvey and Sean Winter, just a point adrift. And in Group 3, it's Bartley Dougal who maintains that lead, but only 5 points over Adam Hayes, with Mark Radcliffe not too far adrift. In terms of the overall championship, it's Andy Ruin who leads it from David Tomlin and Michael Simmons. Bartley Dougal leads the Group 3 runners, he's in 4th, and Francis Galashan heads up Group 2 and is 5th overall.
Well, that was another great day of racing for the GT Cup Championship here from the fabulous, if not a little wet, Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Our next event is at the newly configured Snetterton 300 on the 26th of June. So I figure if I set off now, it's about 125 miles. I should about be there for qualifying. I'll see you then.